Whiplash! Finish! Fisto! Hey guys, Ken here from the Retro Toys Escapades channel in Malaysia. Thanks for joining me today as we roll straight into our reviews for MOTU Origins Wave 10, kicking off with Whiplash, the evil tail thrashing warrior. This is one of the most often requested villains from MOTU, and he's finally here in Origins, one of the best figures of this wave. Let's check him out. The original vintage Whiplash figure had a whole bunch of text here on the card back explaining the figure's action feature. That's no longer present here because this new Origins style Whiplash figure no longer contains that action feature, the tail thrashing action feature. Now that's because all of the original vintage MOTU figures all came with the action features built into the waist. The waist was made out of rubber bands. All you had to do was just turn the waist, release it, and the figure would spring back with a punch. Or in the case of Whiplash, it would get its tail swinging forward to attack. Now it says right here, twist his waist, his battle thrashing tail whips around. But that's sadly something you can no longer do with this new figure. But you can get his tail thrashing around manually though. Now, the bio on the back of the card reads, the reptilian brute's monstrous tail delivers skull-crushing blows to his enemies. And you see Whiplash going up against Fisto and the Battle Armor He-Man here in the background. The appearance of the Battle Armor He-Man is in fact a reference to Whiplash's original card back artwork where you see him in battle with just the Battle Armor He-Man. There's no sign of Fisto at all. However, Fisto and Whiplash did have an incredible battle sequence in the classic mini-comic story, The Clash of Arms. Now this story is a pretty excellent standalone Fisto action thriller where he's got to survive in this brutal arena of death, not just against Whiplash but against a whole bunch of MOTU villains. Go check it out, it's a pretty good read. Here's the figure's assembly guide that shows you where all the joints are, where everything attaches together and where everything can be pulled apart. Memorize this information, guys. In case you ever lose this piece of paper, you'll need this information, so memorize it. Alright, the mini comic that comes with this set is called Mind Over Matter. And from the cover, we can tell that Digitino is going to be the star here of this story because he's front and center. In fact, the illustration here kind of makes him look a little bit like Dwayne Johnson, back when Dwayne Johnson had hair. Remember those days? Okay, we're going to check out the review for this mini comic separately, so look out for that. Okay, once you actually get Whiplash unboxed, you'll notice that his tail comes in two separate sections. That's right, there's one disassembled piece. And the funny thing is, there's no place in the packaging where this is even mentioned, okay? It's like they don't even care about it. But hey guys, there ain't nothing to it. Just take this end over here, stick it into that end over there, and there you have it. A fully fledged, fully operational lizard tail. Okay, and this thing also acts as a point of stability for the figure. This thing in the back like that, there's no way that he can actually topple backwards. Okay, so that's awesome. Whiplash. You know what? It's great to finally get this figure in hand after so many months of seeing the images floating around online. And then for a while there, it kind of like just disappeared. There was like no news on this at all. And it was all about the Snake Man and stuff like that. And then suddenly he just pops up, right? So it's great to have him here. Now, the facial sculpt is a huge improvement from what I can see over the vintage original. At the same time, it's also very closely inspired by that original vintage head. And a lot of fans, I think, probably will take issue still to the fact that he's got that weird kind of like tooth that's in the middle there, sort of like sticking out of his nose or his nostril. Well, I'm not really sure what the design inspiration for that was, but after all this time, it's still there. Now, the articulation on the head is a bit limited, probably because of the design of the armor, so you can't really get into just, oh shit. Okay, as I was saying, the articulation on the head is a little bit limited because of the design of the body. You can't really get his head to sort of like tilt backwards or forward all that much. Can't really get him to sort of like look down with menace at a victim. Yeah, so that's one of the drawbacks here. Probably they could have improved on that a little bit. But overall, yeah, you still can get him some pretty cool poses. Now, side by side with the original vintage Whiplash figure, you can see how the head designs are fairly similar. It's just that with the new one, it just has that extra edge of menace. Probably is in the eyebrows, okay, that really capture an extra look of sort of like real danger there. And yeah, the new head sculpt is preferable, but ideally I would say that it would have been good if they had just gone in a different direction altogether with the head sculpts, sort of like what you see here on the card back artwork. Now, I would have preferred it if the face cut for Whiplash would have been able to match this illustration here. Okay, the way he looks like on this cardback artwork. He looks great here, especially the design around the mouth area and the teeth. And this is closer to what I think an improved vintage version of Whiplash should look like. Now, Whiplash is one of those select few figures that doesn't have any chest armor. His main body is his armor, yeah, and it's very sturdy. Basically, everything about this figure, from the neck down all the way down to his toes, minus his hands, is just a replica of Bazov's body. They just reused the same body again, in case you guys didn't pick that up. But I think that the translation on Whiplash kind of looks better, Yeah, I'm not sure, man. I mean, it's like you could take what is essentially the body of a bee, a hybrid bee, and you could just turn it into a reptilian lizard monster, and and it still works. But I think that this overall body design kind of works better on Whiplash. Okay, let's just do a quick articulation check. Now, if you've owned any of the Masters of the Universe Origins figures to date, you know how all the limbs operate and move. The only issue here would be that if they're tight enough. And I gotta say that, for this one, everything feels solid. There have been instances, definitely, where the figure's joints are not strong enough. Okay, but this one is really sturdy, especially on the knees here. It's kind of like I had to put in a little bit of effort to get it bent. So that's great, all right? The figure's very sturdy. Now, the main draw this time around for the Whiplash redesign for Origins has got to be the work that's been done on the entire tail section on the back. This is one solid piece. Okay, it's like the instructions this time around must have been make damn sure that we don't see any of that floppy, rubbery-like material that was on the vintage figure. The end tip of the tail is made out of flexible material, so this was a welcome surprise. You can get this thing moving around, get it striking into a certain action position. You just can't get it to hold that position, okay, because it falls back. But at the same time, it is articulated here at this joint, so you can move the tail around from side to side. Again, fantastic, all right? None of that floppy stuff in a vintage figure. It is a bit of a compromise, though, because I was wondering how were they actually going to articulate this thing. It's not actually articulated, but it does have some movable points at this area here. And with the flexibility at the tail, well, there's pretty much a lot of stuff that you can still do with this figure. Putting it side by side with the original vintage Whiplash figure, you can see how that first version figure had a very hollow tail. All right, it was just like this very rubbery, soft material that they used. It does allow for some movement, but zero articulation. Okay, you can't get the tail to lock into any particular pose. It just moves around, it flops around, and yeah, it was a source of frustration. But at the time, I suppose that that was pretty revolutionary. But with the new tail, as you can see, this is just a solid piece, inside and out, and it can be disassembled as well. You can get the tail out if you wanted to, and in fact, the tail, if you disassemble it, you can in fact get Whiplash clutching onto the end tip of the tail like so. I mean, lizards do grow back their own tails, right? I mean, so yeah, he could just probably rip off the end bit of his tail and hold it like a weapon. This is not an official look, but it's something that you can do with the figure. In some ways, I can see how the twist and strike original tail thrashing action could be missed. Yeah, real smooth. Whiplash gets a bright red spear accessory, a very medieval looking weapon for a medieval looking dragon monster creature hybrid thing. Yeah. Now this new spear accessory isn't quite as bendable as the vintage original. That one was just really flimsy, right? See this thing? I mean, I don't know how it got that way. It was just really frustrating every time I used to handle it. If I were to put them side by side, you can see how the new spear is just a little bit longer than the vintage original. So either way, you're just getting a better accessory. Now, what I think is really great is that, Whiplash had a pretty cool vintage accessory. The spear was alright, but it just couldn't be deployed in any useful way because of the articulation on the old figures. But with the new figures, alright, like with this new Origins figure body, you can actually have him posed in very dynamic action situations, okay? You can have him posed in a variety of ways on a display shelf with the weapon accessories, and that, I think, is probably the best contribution that these new Origins bodies have offered your collection. even from the back, man, he just looks spectacular with a weapon in hand, especially now that you can post the tail as well. You can have it positioned from side to side, and it just holds up great. I mean, I think this whole combination is just fantastic. You guys are going to love this figure. Also, for dioramas, my God, okay, you can have him now just in an all-out action diorama with any poor Masters of the Universe hero like Fisto right here getting speared. Yeah, you can have him up there on the display like this, and that display is just gonna pop. What do you guys think? Now, the Whiplash figure from 2002 is in fact my all-time favorite Whiplash figure. This was the first Whiplash figure I ever owned, and for the longest time, I just made this like the definitive Whiplash figure for me. You know, it's like I just ignored whatever variation of him came up before that. This was the best version of Whiplash ever, and I kind of wish that this particular Origins Whiplash was a deluxe figure, and then that would have given them the excuse to do something like what Classics did, because Classics, you know, a couple of years back when it was still running, it put out a vintage style Whiplash figure, but at the same time, it featured an alternate hit, which was the 2002 hit, and also the alternate weapon, which was the 2002 double-bladed weapon that you see here. So I kind of wish that they gone in that direction for this Whiplash figure as well. They didn't, you know, but you know, hey, look, you know, who knows? Okay, maybe in the future, something like that, we might see an Origin-styled 2002 Whiplash figure. Yeah, I'm thinking that could be a possibility a little bit down the road. By the way, the 2002 Whiplash figure has got a cool tail striking action. Yeah, take that. Take that! Okay guys, so that's the video. That's my look at the MOTU Origins Wave 10 Whiplash figure. Let me know what you think of him in the comment section. Are there things about this figure that I wish were different? Yeah, sure, but overall, this figure is fantastic. If you need a Whiplash figure for your Origins collection, then this is the only one that's available. This is the one you need to get. Okay, they did a great job with it. And I want to hear your comments. Thank you once again. I'll catch you guys again real soon with more content. Take care out there.